Yo guys, it's slyroh. You already know that today we are back reading some more Danganronpa Zero, and I think this is going to be the last video of this. We're starting on chapter 13. I believe there's 17 chapters, but there's also like 17 pages left in the novel. And we are getting a lot of crazy information right now as Ryoko snuck into the X-School building, and by snuck I mean security guards let her in to where Kamishiro-kun was. Kamishiro was acting a bit weird. Started revealing some stuff. Then we got down to the bottom. Kamishiro-kun was killed by who we thought was Zuzuru Kamakura, but it turns out it's actually Yasuke Masuda. And now I don't know the connection of anything. Apparently Masuda has been working with Junko, but like I don't know how this is working at all. So this is, yeah, we have a lot of questions, and I'm assuming that the end of the novel is going to answer about as many of them as I can. So we're going to start with chapter 13, and we're probably finishing off the novel today. So hopefully y'all are excited. I know I am. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Chapter 13. In the end, you didn't remember. You remembered other things, just not me. Damn it, this is just horrible. For you to believe me so easily when I said I was Kamakura, this really is just horrible. Does my existence barely mean anything to you? Huh? What? I didn't know what to say. An intense chill assaulted my spine, and my teeth began to chatter like a drum. Are you really Matsuda-kun? The real Zuma Kamakura has been taken from here a long time ago. That means you and I are the only ones left, almost as someone playing this all out. That impossible string of thought that floated in my head took the form of a concrete truth. I desperately opened up Ryoko Otonashi's notebook and flipped through the pages in a frenzy, searching for anything that would deny this impossible truth. Then after a while, my hand stopped. In the notebook were an amazing amount of portraits detailing Matsuda-kun. Looking up and confirming the individual in front of me one more time, the scattered puzzle pieces in my thoughts immediately were placed back together. But why? How come I'm not... the heartbeat in my chest, the rise of emotions. I know you're not feeling anything. Ironically, those words prove that he was Matsuda-kun. After all, the only other person who knew my method in recognizing Matsuda-kun was Matsuda-kun himself. That's because you're beginning to remember things again. Because you begin to regain your memory, you stop thinking about me. Huh? But... I guess she was thinking of the idea of Matsuda-kun without actually thinking of, like, the person of who Matsuda-kun is. I wonder, okay. In the end, that shows that my existence wasn't anything special to you. You forgot about that fact. That's why you were filled with such emotion towards me. Matsuda-kun isn't important to me? Because I forgot that, I thought he was important to me? What are you talking about? I don't get it. Then that intense itching entered my brain again. I remembered the things I would have said to Matsuda-kun when meeting him, the things I would have done when meeting him, why I wanted to even meet him so bad in the first place. I remember the reasons for everything. What is this? Why? Suddenly I wasn't able to believe anything. Not Matsuda-kun, not myself, not even the world. I spontaneously began stepping back, but those legs immediately began to stop. Behind me stood a wall blocking my way. So I just stopped and stood there. Matsuda-kun began taking steps as if pursuing me, impatiently moving forward. Matsuda-kun, what's wrong? I cried out with a voice tinged with terror. He responded with a pale face, tension building to the point where it could take my breath away. Filled with fear, I spoke that name. Could it be Junko Hinoshima's fault? He stopped in his tracks and stared at me with a piercing glare. Ah, that must be it. The sharp glare felt as if pierced my entire body. These are Matsuda-kun's eyes? Are you really Matsuda-kun? I quickly swallowed those words, almost coming out of my throat. I could tell that they would only make matters worse. Hey, Matsuda-kun, let's stop this. Being cornered by Matsuda-kun like this, pleading was all I could do. How about we just head back to the laboratory? We could just relax and chat while you perform treatment on me. If we do that, everything will go back to normal. By the end of my pleading, my voice changed into a scream. After all, this is just wrong. This has to be wrong. It's already too late. But Matsuda-kun turned his head. I can't go back anymore. Neither you nor I, we can't go back. Hearing his freezing voice, my whole body quickly began to grow cold. Why are you saying that? Why are you spouting these cruel words? Continuing with that freezing voice, he spoke with rage and irritation. You still can't remember what I've done to protect Junko Inoshima? I see, that I'll make you remember. Oh. It's alright. Let's just forget about this. So, okay, whoa, wait, because now I'm just thinking back to the sort of scene with Masuda and the Murasame, the student council president, and when he said Junko's name, that like made the student council president sort of like come to life again. Was Matsuda actually acting on Junko's side, where like as soon as it seemed like he was going to regain some sort of level of consciousness, he made sure to like kill the student council president to keep him quiet? Is that like have anything to do with something? Because that's not what it made it seem like, but maybe that's exactly what happened. Okay. Sorry, let's just forget about this and get away from this place. Nothing will change even if we forget. No one knows that better than you do. I don't know anything. Reaching my limit, I shrieked with all my plight. Matsuda-kun without paying in mind. Alright, just hear me out. Why is he speaking with such a sad face? I'm the sad one here. Most speak Academy's worst incident. Everything changed because of it. No, I finally realized it because of that incident. The fact that my life, which I thought was completely normal, was actually a fake scenario to set up to control me. Those words were not directed towards anyone, not even me, but completely himself. I've been fooled by Junko and Nishima all this time, completely fooled. But even so, I couldn't stay away from her. I thought I could save her. I thought I'd be able to stop her. That's what I was made to believe. His voice immediately began to stain with bitterness. In order to protect her, I concealed her existence itself. But regardless of that, she went ahead and even killed the committee board members. That's how I went as far as to hide those corpses. I dealt with the evidence for her sake. So he was the one hiding corpses. As my ears took in those words, my mind began playing through all the scenes that had occurred up to this point. There was no time to even feel the itching. Not only that, I even murdered people for her sake. In order to silence Toshio Murasame, who knew the truth about the incident. It's the same with that Yuto Kamishiro. For her sake, I couldn't let them live. That's why I killed him. Yeah, so he did. He definitely killed Murasame, and then obviously, yeah, we saw him kill Kamishiro, which again, everybody was sad except for nobody was. I was completely submerged by the torrent of truth blasting out of Monster-kun, but there was something I needed to know, no matter what, so I struggled to keep my head about the waves as I attempted my question. Is she really that important? Junko Nishima, is she really that important to you? She is. At what point did she corrupt him, or Monster-kun responded with no hesitation. Why is she so important to you? As my tears of confusion and fear pushed me against the flood, I struggled forward as I frantically raised my feeble voice. Because of what she said to me. What she said to me when I lost what was what's important to me. From now on, I'll be what's important to you. It was ridiculously impudent, but thanks to that impudence, I was prevented from being all alone. She's not family, a lover, or even a friend, but she's someone just as important to me as any of those. Just as important as any of those. That's how Matsuda-kun felt about Junko and Nishima. I felt like everything was over. No, rather, everything was over from the beginning. I had no chance of winning from the start. Someone who had no past had no chance of competing with Junko and Nishima. Frustration, jealousy, there was none of that. It's over was all I could feel. I let out a huge breath. Contained in that breath was my resignation to the entire world, and then it happened. A clashing sound could be heard, and Matsuda-kun instantly turned around. The scene past his shoulder was laid out for me. I could see a girl standing in the elevator. Looks like I was right on time. With showy makeup as it strayed from a fashion magazine and a huge inflated fluffy blonde hair. The uniform was popped open enough for a ridiculous amount of cleavage, along with an insanely short skirt from which long slender white legs ran down. Junko and Nishima, I shout out with confidence. Junko and Nishima? Matsuda-kun mumbled mixed with doubt. Huh? Well, it's not like I came here to get in your way or anything. Without even a word being said, she began explaining herself. I just came here to provide the supplementary explanation. It appears to be the right scenario for this. The blonde-haired girl with showy makeup unmatchingly spoke in a hesitant manner. Wait, isn't that kind of weird? Well, the explanation, you can probably tell from my appearance, but needs be that I am to follow Juko-chan's scenario only to enact this part. Yeah, that's what this is. And I once again I was once again attacked by that severe itching. It was so bad that I felt like I wanted to claw my hands into my brains, and then immediately after that, along with feeling like my vision opened up, I remembered the face of the girl standing in front of me. This face I've been seeing was not Junko Nishima's, but someone else. That's right, this would be Mukuro Ikusaba's face. Alright, so at this point, they're already planning the next phase, and so Mukuro has taken to dressing up like Junko. That doesn't really make sense in sort of the timeline. I guess she's just doing it for the sake of the story, so that we thought it was Junko, because I don't think timeline-wise this makes sense. But at the same time, another question floated up in my head. If the me right now was able to recognize Mukuro Ikusaba, what about the past forgetful me? Showing makeup, blonde hair, popped open uniform, insanely short skirt. If I saw that disguised girl, would I be able to connect things together and realize it's Mukuro Ikusaba? And does that mean the Junko Nishima I've known all this time? I'm sorry. The girl bowed her head. To explain things, the Junko Nishima you've met was really me disguised as her. What? This guy is basically a fake? So Junko never actually showed up in the story? That doesn't make sense. It's not like I did that because I wanted to. It was because Junko-chan told me to. That's why even my lines were set up by Junko-chan. Then, what about the real Junko Nishima? So this is the most important part, but the reason why I did all this was because I hid Junko Nishima, right? Matsuda-kun's irritated words interrupted her. Because I hid Junko Nishima, the real her is gone, and taking advantage of that, you became Junko Nishima. Doing so, you make this one believe in Junko Nishima's existence? What are you guys talking about? Yeah, this is a solid question. Make me believe in Junko Nishima's existence, but why? I was completely lost. Basically, Nishima anticipated my actions. She saw through my plan in hiding her, and is now simply spectating my actions in amusement. Spectating? I frantically looked around the hall. There must have been something here indicating there was someone was spectating us, but there weren't any peeping holes or hidden cameras anywhere. Huh? Why? This is ridiculous. To think she'd be driven by despair. I don't want to believe this, but she must have gotten near me at some point. Whatever he was about to say quickly faded away. I was already incapable of understanding his feelings, his frustration towards Junko Enoshima, his resentment towards Junko Enoshima. To the point of despair, I couldn't understand anything. There was one thing that was clear to me. Once again, to the point of despair, very clear to me. He must love her, but at the same time, hate her, right? That's right. Masada-kun quietly nodded. He confirmed my thoughts. I was right to give up. There was nothing I could do but to give up and let everything end. This is the end of my world. This is the end of the world of Masada-kun and I. The moment I gave up, the curtains of my soul began to slowly fall. Thump. Huh? That's why I have to end this. While covering his face with both hands, Masada-kun let out a huge sigh. He then lifted his face with eyes brimming with unwavering determination. It's likely that my desire to protect her was true despair. That's why, unless I end this, my despair won't end either. That was the voice of someone who gave up on everything. That's why I have no choice but to end this. The eyes were full of anger, sadness, love, and hatred, all boiled and concentrated together. But even then, there was a mysterious calmness expressed on his face. Thump, thump. Ah, but why? I didn't want Junko Enoshima to get involved with others. I thought I would be protecting her that way. Masada-kun began to close our distance at a slow pace. That's why I hit her. That's why I desperately tried to hide her. Thump, 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 thump. As Masada-kun drew closer, the beats in my heart grew louder and louder. But it was pointless. My actions did nothing. What I did meant nothing to Enoshima. In the end, there was nothing she could do but to inflict despair on anyone involved with her. That's why this is despair. The fact that I finally understand that. I finally understood it as well. Glad somebody does, because I don't. The thumping in my chest, I just now remembered. The moment I gave up on everything, I remembered my feelings towards Masada-kun. This must be because of the scenario Junko Enoshima set up. In order for despair, he had me finally remember it. That's why I've decided to end things once and for all. Masada-kun finally stopped in front of my eyes. The distance between us was to the point where our feet almost touched. While I felt the continuous heartbeat in my chest, I felt dizzy and blood rushing to my head as I looked at him. Then, as if about to embrace me, he took those hands and squeezed them around my neck. I was done for. There must have been no other way. After all, Junko Enoshima was an important existence for him. Seeing how no one loved Masada-kun more than I did, I understood that. But, to the very end, I wanted to die in the world of Masada-kun and I. That was a hope that embraced me to the very end. Is this also for the sake of Junko Enoshima? With that faint hope in my chest, I timidly asked that question. No, this is for my sake. Calm response surprised even me. I've already accepted this. I've already completely accepted Ryoko Otonashi's end. You don't need to remember anything anymore. I could feel his warm breath on my cheeks as he spoke those gentle words. This is the end of everything. Yeah, I know. After all, this has nothing to do with me, right? He then calmly began to put force into his hands, but I wasn't in pain. In fact, the warmth coming from the palms of his hands felt comfortable. I was most likely smiling. Thump, 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 thump. Thump, 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 thump. My raging heartbeat, my entire body heating up, intense ringing in my ears. I guess I was at least a bit scared, but Masada-kun's face in front of me seemed to become gentle as he released his extreme stress. It really is Masada-kun. As I burned that face into my memory, I slowly closed my eyes. I'll be done at this rate. Everything will be over. It'll finally not be over. Boo, 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 boo. It was all of a sudden. A familiar, sinister laughing voice began to echo within my ears. Come on, I've said it before, haven't I? I'd murdered you bastards one day. I've come to fulfill that promise. Don't tell me you've forgotten. Boo, boo, boo. The giddy voice forced my eyes open, and all I saw was Masada-kun's surprised face. I see a black figure standing behind him, super high school level despair. Walking from behind Masada-kun, she slowly approached my face. Once she got close enough to the point where she was lined up with Masada-kun, the face within the figure finally presented itself to me. I can remember it now. That face was me. Ooh, that's right, Ryoko Otonashi never even existed in the first place. Hilarious, isn't it? It's despair-inducing. That's hilarious. That voice rang out. The voice that rang out was of myself. By the very end, I remembered. I finally remembered everything. At the same time, everything crumbled apart. The scenario I perceived to be an immutable existence easily and then completely crumbled apart. It was like that sandcastle. No matter how elaborate or stable it appeared to be, it easily crumbled apart like that sandcastle. My entire body, skin, muscle, bones, all like dry sand crumbled apart, and I faded away. Everything crumbled away and went back to normal. My world ended, and her world was created. That would be my Ryoko Otonashi's final moment. Then everything returned back to normal. I am so beyond confused right now. Nothing about this is normal. I don't know what's going back to normal, but this is nothing. Is this saying that Ryoko doesn't exist and Ryoko was Junko the whole time? I don't... Oh man, this whole story feels like a lie, and I feel like I would have to like read it all again to actually understand what was happening. But that's definitely not something that I want to do. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Alright, well, chapter 14, maybe we get more stuff answered, because this is wild. I do not understand how any of this is working, and then I definitely don't understand it how any of this works on the timeline in terms of what I assume to be the timeline of what I know. Going through all the other Danganronpa like content that I've been through, I don't see that this is lining up anywhere. But let's continue reading and see what happens. Alright, so chapter 14. The strength within those hands gradually began to weaken as energy left the entire body. Then Matsuda finally relinquished his grip on that girl. Clang. A sound rang out from the ground. It was a knife tainted by blood. It was a knife engraved with Hope's Peak Academy's emblem. Blood could be seen dripping down around it, and soon it developed into a sizable pool of red. Putting my hand towards my stomach, I could feel a warm sensation. Matsuda then returned his eyes to that girl. Listen, you bitch, he spoke while suffering. Before I die, you should know that when I told you, what I told you was a lie. It wasn't any kind of treatment. I've been preventing you from remembering anything at all. I already know that. I then heard that voice. The mouth of the girl who responded began to swerve. It must have been a smile, smiling from the taste of the knife that pierced Matsuda-kun's flesh. And that's what Matsuda confirmed it. The fact that the person known as Ryoko Ochinashi no longer exists. By the way, Mukuro Saba's murmuring voice could be heard. I was only supposed to appear in Junko-chan's likeness in front of the real one, but I accidentally got caught by Madurai at one point. But I really didn't get caught by anyone else. Obviously. Who's talking to who at this point? Matsuda coughed up blood along with his resentful voice. Anybody who knew would easily be able to tell. Even if you are sisters, you two are still different people. Besides, the Enoshima who appeared before me is definitely the real one. Hearing those words, different people, Ikusaba, as if annoyed, turned her eyes away from him and instead placed them only on that girl and spoke. That's why for this case, besides me being disguised as Junko-chan, the real Junko-chan conducted her own secret plans as well. It's just that she herself did not even realize that, meaning Junko-chan was deceived by herself. In the end, everything went just as planned, from the very beginning straight to the end. Matsuda spoke to that girl as well. While speaking, his consciousness was beginning to fade away, and just standing appeared to be a struggle. But even so, his frail gaze continued to focus on that girl. But there's one thing I don't understand. Why you planned such a troublesome turn of events? Why you went so far to have me take away your memory in order to escape investigation from the school? It doesn't sound pleasant at all, but even so, you were able to push through it all. Then why? Failing to keep his ground, he finally sat down. But Matsuda continued his interrogation, resolute on obtaining his answer. Was it to pull me, who was always thinking of you, into despair? That girl then began to finally move. She gently caressed his face with her hand in an almost lovingly way, and sat down next to him, paying no matter to the blood spread around the area. So, she then drew Matsuda's face, whose eyes were beginning to drift away, toward her and whispered, "I'll tell you." That whisper was filled with a gentle feeling of love, but it soon radically changed. Are you fucking kidding me? Don't get so ahead of yourself. There's no way in hell I'd go through this pain-in-the-ass mess just to bring you into despair. What the hell are you thinking? As soon as those words finished, that girl immediately thrust her hand away from Matsuda's face. Doing so, Matsuda collapsed under the pool of blood he created. You don't give a damn, is what you're saying, huh? Matsuda muttered those words as he laid on his back, gazing towards the ceiling. Staring at that face from straight above was that girl. Their faces were close enough for the tips of their noses to easily touch, but even so, his gaze didn't exactly match up with hers. As I began to absent-mindedly falter, I guess I don't have anything to do with this. That really was the case after all. Because of the overflowing blood, I felt an unnatural warmth developing in the back of my throat, but that soon faded away. How long have you felt that way? Has it been since we were children? That girl's face was warped into a cruel smile. What if I told you that the reason your mom got that way was because of me? What kind of face would you show me? What? Pain, as if a sharp needle passed through his heart, was displayed. You're not serious, are you? As he spoke with that shivering voice, bits of blood splattered onto that girl's face from his mouth. It stood out more than ever, her cruel, inhumane smile. Answer me. While Matsuda grew more and more grave, Enoshima, on the other hand, seemed to fall into ecstasy. Without giving any response, that girl just continued to watch as she cupped her chin in her hands. Matsuda's soul was falling into the depths of despair. His own meaning of life was thoroughly and decisively violated, and was then rejected. He had completely given in to despair. Please respond. His clinging words barely formed into words at all. Come on, what's your answer, Jinko Enoshima? That was the end. Without ever hearing an answer, Yasuke Matsuda died. Completely submerged in despair, he died. Okay, I still don't feel like anything was answered, but Yasuke's now dead. Or Matsuda's dead, whatever. Oh my gosh. So, everybody that we've met is like dying. Ryoko might not have existed. This is such a crazy convoluted story. I'm just like, what in the world happened? Chapter 15, let's see if we can get some answers. And once she confirmed everything had ended, Junko Inoshima slowly got up, but she ceased her actions and decided to look down for a while longer. She stared at the Yasuke Matsuda, who had experienced his last breath not too long ago. There's no way this would have nothing to do with me. There was a hint of sadness laid somewhere in that murmuring voice. After all, you were the most important person to me of all. Those were true feelings. Yasuke Matsuda was an especially important existence for Junko Inoshima. Ever since they were children, he always stood up for her, always continued to unconditionally love her, and above all, just being by his side made her heart feel warm. But she killed off that existence with her own hands. She stepped on it, forced it past the gates of despair, and brutally murdered it. That's what Inoshima had desired. She loved him so much, that irreplaceable existence, more important than anyone else, almost obsessed with him to the point of insanity, always wanting to be within his embrace, even living in a world with only him would be fine. And by losing that incredible existence, just how much despair would I fall in? She nurtured her love for Matsuda all this time just to get a taste of that feeling. Seeing her loved one be smothered by despair during his last moments, she pretty much lived to experience that spectacle. Finally, getting to taste that despair. Incredible! It was more than anything she could have hoped for. Too depressing, too good, my chest is going to tear open. This is true self-loathing. I want to die. This is the despair that comes from losing a loved one. While Inoshima's being was assaulted by that despair, she kicked Yasuke Matsuda's corpse with all her strength. Amazing, 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 amazing! While absorbed and screaming, she kicked the corpse of the one she so dearly longed for with no mercy whatsoever. Flowing out of her eyes were a continuous stream of tears. While those tears of delight, lament, and confusion overwhelmingly flowed, kicked her beloved's corpse until it was a lump of meat, barely holding any resemblance to its original form. Boo 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 boo! Oh, wow. Okay, so here's kind of what it sounds like to me. It sounds like Ryoko was Junko the entire time, and Matsuda was hiding her and trying to take away her memory, or maybe Junko specifically had her memory taken away, but it seemed like Matsuda was doing everything he could to prevent that memory from coming back, knowing that Junko would be dangerous, unless Matsuda was always. I don't know if he was influenced by despair or not. I don't really know, or if that was his own choosing as to what he was doing. Everything is so confusing. I have no idea. It sounds like that's what happened, but I feel like that changes so much about the story, and that also changes so much about what I would expect. And again, I feel like I don't know how this lines up on the timeline of the events of all these things. I guess this is taking place after the incident, so I don't know, but Junko was definitely around for that stuff, so I don't know. This is very weird. I don't know how I feel about this, but we're almost done, so let's go ahead and read chapter 16. Kyoko, alright, this is another thing, because I know that Kyoko met Ryoko at some point, and so did Kyoko pick up on anything suspicious or not? Or how far did she take her investigation? Let's see. When Kyoko Kirigiri opened her eyes, she found herself at the infirmary. The scene outside the window portrayed nightfall. It seemed that at some point, the day had reached evening. As Kyoko slowly rose out of her bed, looks like you're awake. A man's voice could be coming from the window. It belonged to Hope Academy's principal, Jin Kirigiri. You were completely knocked out. Has work finally caught up to you? How long have I been asleep? You wouldn't stay put, so I had the school physician give you some medicine. It should still be in effect, so things may still be a bit hazy. You should probably just relax for now. Her consciousness and sensations were certainly still a bit dim. Following orders from him was frustrating, but there isn't much one can do against the effects of medicine. With no other choice, Kyoko laid back down on the bed, and then she remembered. She remembered the moment when Mukuro Ikusawa came to assist her. Being cornered by the Madurai brothers, she appeared at just the right time and saved her. But why did she save her? Sure, they were classmates, but there were hardly any occasions of social interaction between them. Putting that outside, however, there was a more pressing issue at hand. That girl that was with her when she was attacked by the Madurai brothers, Junko Inoshima, what happened to her? Oh. She tackled that question in her mind in a very Kirigiri-like manner. Then, it appeared that she was rescued by Ikusawa-kun as well. I'll give you the trouble of overthinking things. She's being temporarily hospitalized at one of the medical facilities in the teaching staff faculty building. Although the silver lining is, well, how would I say this? Due to shock from the incident, it seems she's recovered her memory. Memory? She'll soon return to her regular school schedule, but it seems that she doesn't remember anything from when she lost her memory. Because of that, there have been numerous confusing issues going on, and everyone has been taking care of her. I see. A classmate returning to class should have been a joyous occasion, but something didn't feel right. Like something was being overdone. Also, there's something important I have to discuss with you. His following words then completely brushed off Kyoko's doubt. closing the investigation request on Zero Kamakura. Eh? Kyoko immediately rose up from the sudden report. Why all of a sudden? Her question was one of urgency. Sorry, but I can't really talk about that. What are you... Okay, fine. I wasn't satisfied with the contents of your work. How does that work for you? Recognizing his lack of acknowledgement, Kyoko scrunched her eyebrows in inquisitiveness. Then what happened to Kamakura? Speaking of which, just today, the new committee board members got inaugurated to replace the old ones. Don't avoid the subject. Due to the members changing, decisions involving confidential information have increased. No matter what you have to say, I don't really have much freedom to be carelessly discussing our secrets. That statement was a clear refusal. Hearing those words, all Kyoko could do was respond with a murmur of resentment. Why are you telling me this now? Alright, in return, how about I reveal to you this confidential information we've been talking about? That is, if your pride as a detective would allow it. His words were almost like a challenge. He was being like that for quite a while. The words you were just being used this whole time were likely. That kind of thought process was simple, but there was a feeling that the reason behind it couldn't be so simple. But what caused that feeling? Was it the intuition of a detective? Or was it because he was her father? She immediately shook her head. Taking off that last train of thought, she roughly responded, I understand. I don't mind giving up on the request. However, there's one thing I would like to know. Kirigiri was watching from outside the mirror in silence. What happened to Yasuki Matsuda and the Madurai brothers? A moment of silence passed, and Kirigiri let out a hefty sigh. He then turned his eyes and began walking toward the door of the infirmary. Kyoko followed his movements carefully with her eyes. He then stopped in front of the door, and without turning his back, he spoke. Expulsion. That's how it seems they were dealt with. His words felt heavy, and a hint of anger could be heard among them as well. Not only that, it was the new committee board members' intention as well, to strictly conceal the incident under the darkness. Those involved, Matsuda-kun and Madurai-kun, were expelled, and soon others will follow as well. Yeah, expelled. More like expelled from this life. You want to go in to stop them? All I did was receive the report. They're not even in the school building anymore. Even you probably would have difficulty in tracking them down. Letting out another huge sigh, Kirigiri began to grind his teeth. Although, it sure was a convenient development. Convenient to the point where one would think someone was manipulating the events from the shadows. But he quickly turned his head as if he regretted what he just said. Even without any formal request, I'll still be looking into it. Aimed towards the back of Kirigiri were words full of determination. Hearing those words, he responded without turning back. Detectives can't do anything until an incident ends. They're useless until all the victims show up. That's a trait that exists within even the most expert detectives. But I think you're different. I feel qualities coming from you that exceed ones of a detective. Those are words coming from witnessing your various talents up to this point. I think I'll be keeping them in mind. What are you trying to say? Kyoko let out a stiff voice. There's no need for apprehending. Kirigiri then looked past her shoulder toward Kyoko, who was a light tipped with anger and an expression close to tears. One last thing, you're free to investigate on your own. However, if you happen to endanger yourself or attempt to bypass the school rules, I won't plan to show any mercy. Prepare yourself. If you can't keep that in mind, you'll be leaving the school. Without waiting for any response from Kyoko, Kirigiri left the infirmary. When entering the hallway, he let out another huge sigh. Even though he was trying to keep her away from the incident for her own good, it still pained him. But she wasn't the type to just happily listen to orders. There wasn't anything to be done about that. The situation was already out of Kirigiri's hands. Just like the ex-committee board members who disappeared, the new ones would eventually become figures of valuable position in their various fields. Soon after their inauguration, the termination of the Kamakura project was announced. It was their way of saying that the existence known as Super High School Level Hope never existed. It wasn't a very surprising turnabout. Kirigiri became the core, and the symbol of hope that Hope Academy raised and nurtured all these years was abandoned unceremoniously. Raised and nurtured all these years. I feel like that's also not true, because from what I understand, Zero Kamakura was sort of made over the span of, like, the research that went into it, probably over a span of years, but, like, the actual person, sort of was only around for not that long, apparently. So, I'm a little unsure about the wording of that. Let's see. Following these actions, the new committee board's members and decisions and plans were quick and prompt. Through various methods, they were able to construct concealment for the incident. It appeared they were instructed by some other party. All of a sudden, Kirigiri began to pick up pace as he continued down the hallway. While walking at a brisk pace, he inadvertently glanced toward the window. The idea that everything had ended was not present. Rather, it felt like it was the start of a new turn of events. Most likely, not a good turn of events. A horrible incident was going to occur from the school, and then consume the world. No one would be able to stop that. From that prediction, Kirigiri felt an uncharacteristic chill creep on. But Kirigiri's decision was already set in place. For the sake of the students, it might be time to speed up that plan. An area where even the new committee board members would not catch wind of. There was no other choice than the ex-school building. With that thought in mind, Kirigiri began to fall into a dash, but he didn't realize it. He didn't realize what was happening to himself. His mouth began to faintly bend. He must have been able to sense it. The talent holding the ability to throw the world into chaos was looking somewhere in Hope's Academy. That was possibly why he was trembling from being enveloped by interest in this existence, but even so, he had no way of knowing what laid ahead. Eventually, the talent will inflict despair across the world, and that very despair will trample across even himself. But Jin Kiryu was still completely unaware. Okay, so is this now going to set up the sort of the decision into the start of the first game? It's chapter 17, but there's like 4 pages left, so we're gonna go ahead and finish this thing off, and then we'll just talk about everything, I guess. Back from her long period of absence, the first thing taken care of when returning to her dorm room was applying the makeup. Looking at her reflection in the mirror, Junko and Ashima saw despair. Geez, Masako-kun sure had horrible taste. Reflecting in the mirror was a simply plain, normal, and uninteresting female high school student. He thinks something like this was a value for despair. I don't know if he picked something up from his mother or something. Going over the sense of a loved one in despair while applying makeup, she next began to tidy up the room. Beginning with picking off the numerous post-it notes saying, "This is my room," and then the Ryoko Otanashi notebook. Looking at this notebook brought back memories of Yasuke Matsuda. Remembering him, she could feel her chest tightening. Consumed by disgust at what she did to him, she was compelled to cry and scream out. "I want to forget this already. I just want to get rid of this notebook." "How? The more reason to keep this on hand." Yeah. With an indescribable expression somewhere between woe and excitement, she flipped through the pages. Suddenly, her hand stopped. On that page laid a ridiculous amount of likeness portraits of Yasuke Matsuda. Horrible drawings are surprisingly heartrending. How exciting. As expected, it seemed that her heart's wound wouldn't heal anytime soon, but that's how it should be. After all, she went so out of her way and lost her memory to taste this despair. Speaking of which, this wasn't the only reason she had her memory lost. There was another goal in mind as well. The reason was within the notebook, within Enoshima's hands. Reports on Matsuda's methods in manipulating her memory were recorded in that very notebook. That was her other reason. Memory manipulation was required for the final stage of her plan to inflict further despair. That's why she wanted to test it. That's why she wanted to test it on herself. She arranged for Matsuda to take away her memory, resulting in becoming a subject to that memory manipulation. I guess this is all one can expect from just an experiment. Just becoming forgetful is only halfway progress. I guess Matsuda-kun didn't try hard enough. Well, once I take care of it, I'm sure it'll turn out perfectly. Taking over a loved one's lovely research, I'll be sure to make use of it in the most despair-inducing way possible. Her other reason for using Matsuda was for this experiment. Alright, so this is how she learns how to take away people's memories, and like specific memories as well. And she sort of takes this research and then perfects it, for moving forward, you know, because that becomes like a big thing for both Danganronpa 1 and 2. Although Danganronpa 2, I believe the Future Foundation were the ones to take over the memories, so if they were able to find this sort of research, or if any of this research was on hand when Matsuda was doing it, then they would also have access to that research to sort of perfect that idea of taking away memories. So, interesting. Shoot, I didn't even see where I stopped. And make sure to use it in the most despair-inducing way possible. Yeah. Her other reason was for this experiment. For that experiment, she anticipated Matsuda's action and then proceeded to move freely within her own inconvenience. It goes for others as well. She anticipated the results of everything and manipulated those events at will. By doing this, she finished her perfect development. It was the same for even Enoshima herself. She was able to control even her own actions and experience the greatest taste of despair. Yoo-hoo, I'm back! Suddenly, a strange voice rang out as the door to the room flew open. Standing at the door was a blonde-haired girl, the one who disguised as Junko Enoshima, Mukuro Ikasawa. With expression displayed on her face, her cheeks rose and formed a huge smile. How, are you surprised? I was hoping to surprise you a bit in commemoration for your return. Do you think I'm a word I'm not going to say? But Enoshima freezingly shot back. Are you trying to raise the tension or something? What are you going to do if someone sees you dressed like that? Are you going to take responsibility for that? Heck, are you even capable of doing that? I'm sorry, as if completely withered, her shoulders crumpled. Also, you barely even look like me. Are you even trying? In fact, do I even look like that? Do I? But I followed Junko-chan's written instructions completely. I see, you can't do anything unless told. You really are dumb. Okay, this translation could probably isn't aging well. That's alright. I'm really sorry. As she hurried to get changed, her eyes were completely blurred with tears. And you still have that ridiculously skinny body. If you have time to perform in the military, you should try getting a body that men would actually like. I'm sorry, please don't be mad anymore. Watching her sister's shoulders shake like a puppy being scolded, Enoshima once again stuck out her tongue. Geez, I really gotta rethink how I'm gonna use this one. So that's Inishima having her sister disguise herself as Inishima to fool her amnesiac self. There was of course the other goal. It was another experiment. Mukuro Ikusawa's disguise was a key component in her future plan to inflict further despair. Yeah, so she's sort of planned out this whole the killing game from Danganronpa 1, I guess from pretty far in advance. And so this was all sort of like testing to sort of perfect that sort of stuff, which makes sense. Memory manipulation was also an experiment. Mukuro Ikusawa's disguise was also an experiment. No, there was more. Forcing high school students into mutual killing and showing that visual to others to spread despair. That was, once again, also an experiment. This, I actually kind of feel like I have a problem with. So, this is also going to take some information from the Danganronpa 3 anime. So, potential spoilers if you haven't seen that. But this video of the student council, whatever, like killing each other, that video is used to just kind of brainwash people. But then when the mutual killing game happens in Danganronpa 1, that's being used to be broadcast all over the world. But that's sort of said as like, oh, if people see despair, they'll feel despair themselves. But even after that happens, there are people that watched that didn't fall into despair, which means that some people don't get brainwashed by that, which is very inconsistent. Because either showing videos of mutual killings either always brainwashes people or only brainwashes some people, and is very inconsistent. And I feel like that might be an oversight by the writers, because yeah, when this video of the classroom killing is shown, it seems to always brainwash people, but when the first game is being broadcast to the world, it doesn't brainwash people. So that's a little inconsistent, and I if anybody can sort of explain the inconsistency, I'd love to know, but I think that might just be like an oversight. Everything was an experiment put into practice, killing two birds with one stone. That's what Hope Academy's worst incident meant to Junko Inishima. Furthermore, the murder of the committee board members were part of that as well. Besides forcing the location of Kamakura out of them, Inishima wanted them to be replaced. Although the experiment this time overall felt like it was missing some excitement. Was it too psychotic? I wonder if I can make it even more excitingly psychotic. I guess forcing mutual killing right away is too stiff. Maybe I should make it a game of some sort. Yeah, that way the murders might get a lot more dramatic. Of course, a mascot is necessary as well. For this experiment, those brainwashed were dressed in a sort of cartoon character outfit that was no good. That was just tasteless. There's room for tons of improvement. Well, so abruptly, Ikusawa's voice spoke out. What do you want? Inishima clicked her tongue as she listened to what she had to say. Why don't you hand over Zuru Kamakura over to the preparatory department? Hearing that, Inishima clicked her tongue even louder. Man, you really are dumb. If they got to kill Kamakura, then they'd be satisfied just like that. That's no good. I want their uneasiness, complaints, and dissatisfaction to build up and them explode all at once. Then they'd show their worth by becoming a mob, right? That's what they're there for. Oh, I see. A bitter smile revealed itself on Ikusawa's face as she nodded in understanding. Then, does that mean Kamakura is no longer needed? I don't really have anything in mind right now, but, well, nothing's going to happen if we just leave him be anyway. Besides, he's not anything like super high school level Hope anymore. He's someone who's fallen into the depths of despair. That was again another result that followed her prediction. In the end, everything moved along with Inishima as well. Everything felt perfectly in line with what Inishima's ambition was. Well, this experiment allowed me to taste despair, so I could say it was a success. But a little part in her still had hope for something else. She had hoped that the plan she worked so hard to concoct would fall into pieces despairingly. This time it wasn't like that, but maybe someday I'll be able to taste that flavor of despair. She even sowed some seeds for the purpose of that possibly occurring. I really am amazing, aren't I? Without thinking, she erupted into laughter. I even prepared a flag for when I myself would lose. I'm the very definition of a mastermind. Don't you think so, sister? Yes, but your way of talking. I got tired of this personality. How many fucking years have you been my sister? Shifting to a violent personality and shouting at her sister Ikusawa. She soon gave up on that as well and began staring towards the window. What's wrong? Despite Ikusawa's worried voice, she continued to stare at the window. Out there was a parade, like a surging tidal wave. The parade was flowing through the school dorms. I wonder what those in class are thinking, looking at this right now. I wonder if they're experiencing the death of their hope. Inishima quickly stood up and spoke with an energized voice. Alright, now that the tension is off the charts, let's go head to class. Our beloved classmates are waiting for us. Okay, just like that, Inishima momentarily returned to her school life. It was annoyingly It was annoying getting friendly with others, but soon the spice of unbelievable despair will scatter about. Actually, I'm getting pretty excited. Alright, let's enjoy the rest of the school life to its fullest. After all, that was her true motive. Thus, the keywords were set. The flag was raised. Mutual killing, ex-school building, brainwash preparatory department, super high school level hope, class 78, Hope's Academy's committee board, principal, memory manipulation, Mukuro Ikusawa's disguise, Monokuma. It all begins from here. The plan to create the strongest despair all starts from here. The world's most despair-inducing incident starts from here. Predicting what will occur is simple, but not doing so would be more interesting. A stronger taste of despair will come on that way, but can I hold on for that long? What should I do? Just picturing that despair caused Enishima's heart to jump. The super high school level Junko Enishima wishes for despair above anything else. Finds hope within despair more than anything else. Finds hope? What the hell? Me finding hope? Realizing that she had been embracing hope, she fell into despair. And nice. That's a good end. So, alright, again, I have a couple of questions. So, right here at this point, Junko is now disguised as Mukuro, and the other way around. But I thought that didn't happen until the actual killing game started. So that's a little weird, because that means that for an entire school year, they would just play the part of each other. And I'm pretty sure there's a scene at the end of Danganronpa 3 where they are starting to set up, you know, they're like boarding up the windows and all that, where Junko looks like Junko and Mukuro looks like Mukuro. So that is an inconsistency there. Also Monokuma, I thought we've learned that Monokuma was related to Monica, that Monica was the one that like sort of did a lot of the programming work behind that, but she never shows up in any of the sort of like flashback stuff, when we're learning about how Junko like got everything like kind of set in motion and going together. Monica never enters the picture as somebody that helped out ever, except for in Ultra Despair Girls. So that's a little weird. It's just like, at what point did that happen? So the timeline is still a very weird thing for me. There's some things that don't super line up. And again, I still always kind of have questions for how long Junko was planning stuff. Because it seems like things started getting bad literally as soon as she showed up. So it's like she shows up, bad stuff happens, then she wipes her own memory, has Matsuda caring for her, convinces herself that she's Ryoko Chinashi, which that's just crazy. The fact that was never even a real person, all for the sake of sort of experimenting with all this sort of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of things kind of stacked on top of each other that are very strange. But I guess that's Danganronpa Zero, and that is the start. I do think that this is very interesting. It's actually kind of funny, where it's like, you feel like you're reading a story of Ryoko Shinashi and like whatever her plan is for this, but then you get like pulled a last minute twist being like, oh, actually everything you know is a lie, which feels like it should be a bad twist, but seeing as this entire story is about Junko trying to inflict as much despair on herself as possible, it kind of fits for the theme of the book, because you as a reader get to experience despair as well, because you're just like, everything I know is a lie, which is pretty funny and on brand. So, and then yeah, but there are a lot of things that do sort of make sense in terms of like how she learned about taking away people's memories. That's something that they went into a lot more detail in the series than I expected. It seemed to be a pretty easy like thing to just kind of go to, like, oh, we took away your memories, well, you know, we're not going to explain how, but no, they actually kind of explained how, and you know, that's very interesting. So yeah, I mean, I don't super understand everything. I'm sure I'll end up watching videos about how everything connects together, but the more important thing is that now that I'm done with this, I can move on to playing Danganronpa V3. To my knowledge, I don't think V3 is like super connected to the other games, but I'm not sure about that. It might be, so I'm going to avoid answering all of my questions until after playing that game, just in case there's anything about that game that does connect to any of the story. But yeah, so hopefully y'all have enjoyed this crazy long read through of Danganronpa Zero. I was not expecting this to take that long to read. It was a way longer novel than I expected, but we did make it to the end. So plan moving forward. is I will be releasing a video soon talking about my thoughts on the Danganronpa 3 anime. And then I will start playing Danganronpa V3, so that is going to be happening very soon. Hopefully y'all are excited. If so, let me know, and I will see y'all then. So till then, peace out.